Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. As you may or may not know, earlier this week, I was starting to hypothesize and start to take positions on looking for oil back to the downside. I talked about this in one of my previous videos, in my pre-market live stream, as well as quite a bit with the community. Now, a few reasons why I was starting to try to take oil back to the downside and starting to hypothesize about a potential position is because, first of all, we all know the oil prices have been quite overextended. Just using technical analysis, I figured maybe we were starting to hit a little bit of a blow off top. And second of all, we were starting to see a very conscious effort from government and other countries releasing some oil reserves, and I figured that would have some pressure on the overall oil futures price. Now, even though I was spot on with this analysis, and right when I got into my put options on this specific stock, which we will talk about today, at the top of where oil prices were on the /CL oil futures, and even though oil futures have dropped about 15% since I took these put positions, I end up here with a loss on my put position on a company that I believed would track oil prices. Now, I made a fatal mistake, and I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about it today, share with you my experience, share with you what I did wrong, what I should have done better, and I figured this would be a great video for some of you guys out there if you are interested in trying to track some of the oil craziness that's been going on, to make sure that you don't make the same mistake as me. So let's go ahead and jump into this video. Let's learn together. Let's share my experience and share what I could have done better and what I did wrong. Press that like button if you enjoy the video after watching. Make sure to subscribe and make sure to come hang out in the pre-market live streams starting every single day at 8 a.m. All right, guys, so as I said, I was looking to take oil back to the downside, and over the last few days, I've been looking for positions to go ahead and take advantage of that potential move. Now, even though I was spot on with my analysis, I end up with a loss. And now I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about what I did wrong. So on your screen, you guys can see this is the /CL, this is oil futures. Now, if I could go back, I would just try to go ahead and trade the oil futures themselves. I have a Trade of 8 account, and I could have just went ahead and traded the oil futures alone. So number one, that's one thing that I will definitely consider in the future if I am trying to trade oil. I might as well just go ahead and trade the actual futures contracts. Now, looking at this price, you guys can see that over the last 2 days, from a high of 130 to where we are now, we have dropped about 18% on oil, on the actual price of oil /CL, the crude oil futures. So we have that drop, and where I went ahead and got in was a great time. Since that time, oil has fell very, very nicely. Now, here is where my entire position went wrong. So around this time, I will go ahead and pull it up for you guys in the chat. So you guys can see in the Discord chat, back on Tuesday of this week. Tuesday of this week was right here, the 8th. On this time, oil futures were trading around $126 to $128 a share, or dollars per barrel, right? And that was basically the top of where oil futures were trading. And this is when I took my put position. I took the wrong ticker. The ticker that I believed was overextended and I believed would actually be correlated to overall oil prices ended up not being correlated at all. Very little, not enough for me to actually profit on this position. So I took some 318, 160 puts on CVX, Chevron, a company that I believed was overextended due to oil prices and would follow oil back to the downside. I took a 160 put and I paid about $2.11 on this position. Today, I closed that trade for a $100 loss. Right here, CVX got out at $1.20 for about $100 loss there. So I got into these positions on Tuesday at around 12 o'clock. And if we go ahead and look at where oil futures were on Tuesday around 12 o'clock, which is right about here, 12 o'clock, if I zoom in on Tuesday, was about right here. Around $128 per barrel is where I got into this CVX put option. And what we can go ahead and look at is if we look at CVX since that time, we will see how since that time, CVX did have one good day of downside, which I was very happy with and very comfortable with the position because I figured we would have a little bit more downside. However, you guys can see today, CVX went ahead and closed the day up 2%. At its peak, it was up about 4% on the day, where if we go to /CL, we can see that oil futures fell yesterday and continue to fall today. Oil futures were down 2.5% today at its close. So even though the /CL and my entire analysis behind this trade was correct about oil futures starting to slip, the ticker that I took which I believed was overextended and would track oil prices, did not. It was uncorrelated, and that was my fatal mistake. There's a few reasons why I believe this happened. First of all, I may have overlooked the overall strength of CVX as a company as its whole, right? CVX is a company that could be benefiting off of increased oil prices, such as selling it for higher prices. I'm not so sure about the margin they actually receive if they have to pay for oil higher. I'm not sure what the whole background of CVX is. I'm sure some of you guys out there, if you track commodities a little better than I do, you probably know a little bit more about the macro and the back end of how CVX operates, and ExxonMobil, right? The actual gas companies. I'm sure their margins are pretty small, but it seems like that may have sort of came into play here. CVX is actually slightly benefiting off of the increased oil prices, and I think maybe that is why we saw some upside today. However, it does sort of perplex me as to why CVX had such a strong day over the last 2 days since that oil price has been declining just about 18%. So, this just shows me that I need to maybe educate myself a little bit more before getting into this oil trade. It's not something that I'm very familiar with, not something that I've done before. And I figured that looking at the daily chart on CVX, if we do that here, this is the daily chart on CVX, guys. And the reason I figured this would be the right ticker to take was because of how overextended it was and how much potential downside that I saw was possible at the time I believed which would happen if oil prices declined. However, that is just simply not what happened, and I had to go ahead and take my loss. Now, what would I do better in the future? First of all, I need to educate myself a little bit more into this trade, into the oil trade, which stocks move lower with oil, which stocks are correlated, and which stocks are not. I went ahead and took a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction type of trade, getting into CVX because I figured this would be a great time to enter, thinking that a stock like CVX, which is correlated, in my opinion, at the time, to oil prices, I figured that would be the best entry on a stock that has been that overextended. Now, that's the first thing I need to do better. Learn and educate myself more on this trade. Second of all, the stock that I should have got into, or the position that I should have got into, was a position like USO. US Oil Fund went ahead and has been very correlated to oil prices. This is the position that I could have taken. If I would have got into this on Tuesday around 12 o'clock, where I did on CVX, from that point, from right around here, the stock is down about 15%. So just about a 1-to-1 correlation with the overall oil prices. So that is something that I learned, and that is something that I take away from this mistake. If I want to trade oil in the future, I can either simply trade the futures contracts on my Trade of 8 account, or I can go ahead and try to trade USO, which was much more correlated to this oil move. So just to put this in a little bit more perspective, I have CVX on the right and /CL on the left. And we can see my entry was right around here on Tuesday around 12 o'clock, right? And we can see since that point, CVX went down about 0.5%. It's about flat since that point. And we can see since Tuesday, where I got in on the oil futures, this thing is down about 17%. So just sharing with you guys a mistake that I made, something that I learned here, something that I'm going to take away from this trade, which is very interesting and something that I definitely did not expect. Oil futures down 17%, a stock like CVX basically flat since my entry. I had to close it. I saw the fact that it was not following oil prices and I was no longer comfortable in it. I end up with about a $100 loss. It could have been much worse if I really did scale into this, thinking that I was catching a very great entry on CVX to the downside. But we walk away pretty unharmed, learning something, getting something out of this trade, and I wanted to share it with you guys today because I thought this would be a great learning lesson for not only myself, but some of you out there. If you are trying to trade oil to the downside, be very careful on trading the actual companies like CVX and even XOM. XOM did move down a little bit more since around 12 o'clock on Tuesday, just about 6%. But the right trade was taking USO, the stock that was very correlated to oil futures. That was the right position to go ahead and take. So that's what I have for you guys. It's a short video, but I think something that's quite interesting out for you guys to learn and to see my mistake, how I'm going to learn from it, and how you guys can have something to take away from it as well. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to press that like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to stay tuned for more trading videos. Make sure to press that bell down below so that you guys know every single time that I go live. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.